I was a hopeful, hard-working man in my early 40s, building a small life around steady work, steady habits, and the quiet trust that comes from years of doing what needed to be done. I believed in clean effort and fair play, in the idea that a man could rise on his own merit if he kept his head down and did his best. I had a circle that felt like a lifeline. A sharp, loyal business partner named Jay, who shared my hours and worries. My wife, Lena, whose hands kept the books and our home steady. And a mentor, old Mr. Carter, who spoke in calm terms about risk and restraint and rewarded caution more than bravado. We were not flashy, but we were together, and that felt enough. We lived for the long marches. Late nights, early mornings, the sound of a printer humming in a back room. The chalk dust of ideas on a whiteboard, the careful edits of a contract that could make or break us. I thought we had weathered the small storms and were moving toward a big, calm harbor. I trusted them with every risk we took, with every secret plan I hid behind a smile, with the fragile dream that our team could outlast fear and doubt. The truth is, I loved that team as if it were family, and I believed they loved me back. Or at least they would, if given time and success to prove it. It was a quiet faith, easy to ignore when the days were good, easy to pick apart when the days grew darker. Yet I carried it like a shield, even when I should have checked for cracks. I did not realize that the people I trusted most could also be the ones who would quietly loosen the screws that held my life together. Inciting incident. The moment the world tilted came with a storm I never invited, a project I poured everything into that began to unravel in slow, deliberate steps. We launched a product we believed would redefine a market, a clean, earnest attempt to fix a flaw that kept people from achieving what they wanted. And then, almost overnight, the failures piled up in the most public way. The project flagging on investor dashboards, the headlines that smelled like a rumor, the whispers that someone somewhere had replaced a line of code with a lie. The board spoke of missteps and financial risk, of misrepresented milestones, of decisions made without the consent of the entire leadership. I listened, stunned, as Jay stood at my side with a carefully tailored calm on his face, nodding as if he too had known the danger all along and was merely waiting for the right moment to reveal it. Lena looked pale in the audience of our home, her eyes hardening with a kind of ice that frightened me more than any accusation. And then the worst sound of all, the sound of my name being dragged through the mud as if it had never been mine to begin with. The proof, they said, lay in emails that proved I had known about the defects and had lied to protect the launch. The truth well hidden behind a smile I wore in every meeting. A smile that now looked like a mask I could not pull off. My world collapsed in a single brutal moment, and with it, the sense that the people I trusted most could be the ones who would set a trap for me, making me the fall guy for something I did not do. They framed me with lies that shone bright in the glare of lights and cameras. And I stood in the middle of a stage I never asked for, watching the ground crumble beneath me as the people I cared for prepared to condemn me. 3. Rising action. The days after felt like a long, cold winter that never ends. I slept little and listened to the clock tick like a judge counting the seconds of my life away. My skin felt too tight in my clothes. My hands trembled when I signed papers I knew were not mine to sign. The humiliation came in waves. Their faces when I walked into a room. The way Lena whispered about process. The look in Jay's eyes that told me this was not a mistake, but a choice to protect themselves at my expense. I did not throw a punch. I studied. I learned every corner of the story they thought they hid. I copied nothing, but I observed. I talked to people who never spoke to me in public. I followed the paper trail, the hidden emails, the quiet transfers, and the way the board spoke in cautious tones about long-term consequences and reputational risk. I listened to the clack of computer keys in a dim cafe as if I were listening to the heartbeat of a city that was turning its back on me. I began to move in small, precise ways, not loud and reckless, but careful. Like a man who knows every blade of grass under his feet and chooses each step with intent. I rebuilt the plan in my head, and then I began to build it for real. I forged alliances with people who saw what was happening in our industry, lawyers who believed in truth over theatre, former colleagues who remembered what we stood for before fear got in the way, and even a few journalists who craved a raw, human story more than a sensational headline. The air around me changed. I could smell coffee and rain and old paper in the nights I spent at the library. The way the room filled with the scent of old wood and potential when a page finally yielded a key detail that could crack the case. My senses sharpened, my mind narrowed to a single brutal target, the moment when the truth would out and all the lies would crumble. I learned the cost of patience, the discipline of waiting for the right moment, and the quiet pleasure of watching a plan take shape without shouting about it. I did not stop breathing. I did not stop moving. I did not even stop loving the idea that I might still save what we had built, even as the faithful few who had turned on me had to face their own reckoning. Climax. The moment I struck back came not with a bang, but with a precise, sharp whisper that cut through a crowded room. It was at the annual investor conference, a stage lit brighter than a winter sky, where I stood with nothing but a folder of documents and a voice that did not tremble. The room watched as I spoke slowly, letting the truth rise like steam from a boiling pot. I showed the forged emails, the altered milestones, the missing approvals, and the careful cold math that proved I had been right all along while they had orchestrated a fall that would wipe me clean from the ledger. Jay tried to interrupt, to spin the narrative, to say the past would stay buried if we moved forward, but the evidence shone like a lighthouse in a fog. Lena sat at the front row, her face a mask I could not read, and in that moment I learned something essential about the people we call family. Sometimes the bravest act is to tell the truth when it costs you everything. The room gasped, then grew quiet, then erupted into a chorus of questions and proofs and apologies that never fully reached my ears because I was listening for something else. The sound of the payment cut and the exposure of the lies that had tried to bury me. The board reeled, the partners stuttered, and I stood there as the architect of the moment when they could not pretend any longer. The truth had teeth, and I had sharpened mine into a blade so perfectly balanced that it did not slip on contact. The betrayal unraveled in front of everyone who mattered, and the trust I had offered in good faith returned as a sentencing light that exposed every falsehood in the flicker of bright screens. Redemption arc. The pain did not vanish with the confession. It moved me into action, into a larger purpose, born from the ache of being left to fight alone. I did not choose revenge alone. I chose a path that could spare others from the same fate. I started a foundation called the True North Initiative, a place where workers who are falsely blamed can find help, education, and a voice when their own are silenced by fear or power. I wrote a book, not for fame, but to carry a map for those who must navigate the treacherous waters of corporate justice, to tell them how to document, how to seek truth, and how to protect their minds when the world turns against them. I built a small company with a single mission: to support whistleblowers, to audit the kind of stories that rarely see daylight, to teach people how to hold on to their integrity, even when the people around them choose convenience over truth. I mentored a new generation of workers who believed in their own worth and learned to demand fair treatment without losing their humanity. The grief of betrayal became fuel for a quiet revolution. I listened to the stories of those who had been audience mistaken for troublemakers, who had carried scars that never fully healed, and I offered them a hand and a plan. My voice found power, not in rage alone, but in the promise that a life after truth can still be more than a life that was taken away. The scars remained, but so did my resolve. And with each new person I helped, the divide between the old world of deceit and the new world of accountability grew smaller. Ending. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe to this channel.